Ever wondered why qualitative coding is so crucial in the field of research? Well, you're about to find out. Qualitative coding is a fundamental aspect of academic research, especially when it comes to dissertations and theses. It's the process of labeling and categorizing data extracts, forming the basis for identifying themes and patterns. Think of it as a bridge that connects the raw data to the meaningful insights you're looking to uncover. Now, the beauty of qualitative coding lies in its flexibility. There are various approaches you can employ, each one offering a unique perspective to your data. These include deductive coding, where you apply pre-established codes to your data, and inductive coding, where the codes emerge organically from the data itself. There's even a hybrid approach, combining the best of both worlds. But how exactly does one go about coding data? Well, that's precisely what this video aims to address. We're here to provide a comprehensive, step-by-step guide to qualitative coding, designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools to tackle your own research projects. As we journey through the world of qualitative coding, we'll delve into the two main stages of the coding process: initial coding and line-by-line coding. We'll explore various initial coding methods, including in vivo coding, process coding, descriptive coding, structural coding, and values coding. We'll also touch on some advanced techniques, such as code categorization and theme identification, which can add depth and robustness to your analysis. But that's not all. We'll also share some valuable tips for effective coding, covering everything from planning and consistency to documentation and alignment with research objectives. And if you're working as part of a team, we'll highlight the importance of coordination and training to ensure a unified approach. By the end of this video, you'll have a good grasp of qualitative coding and its role in your research. So, strap in and get ready for an enlightening journey into the fascinating world of qualitative coding. What exactly is qualitative coding, and why does it matter so much? Well, let's dive right in. Coding in the realm of qualitative research is the process of labeling or tagging pieces of content. This labeling allows us to categorize data extracts, which then form the basis for identifying themes and patterns in our analysis. It's a bit like putting sticky notes on different sections of a book, each note representing a specific idea or theme. Why is this important? Coding is a cornerstone of ensuring a systematic and transparent analysis. It's all about enhancing the validity of your research. Without coding, your analysis could be seen as arbitrary or biased. Coding helps to make sure that your conclusions are grounded in the data, and not just in your own personal interpretations. Now, there are different approaches to coding, mainly deductive, inductive, and a hybrid of the two. Let's take a closer look at each. Deductive coding is when you have pre-established codes that you apply to your data. For instance, let's say you're studying people's attitudes towards a new technology. You might have pre-existing codes like positive attitudes, negative attitudes, and neutral attitudes. You then go through your data and tag each piece with one of these codes. On the other hand, inductive coding is a bit more exploratory. Here, the codes emerge from the data itself. There are no preset codes. Instead, you immerse yourself in the data and let the codes arise naturally. This approach can be particularly useful when you're dealing with a new or under-researched topic, where pre-existing codes might not exist. Finally, there's the hybrid approach, which combines both deductive and inductive methods. You might start with some pre-established codes, but also allow new codes to emerge from the data. This approach gives you the best of both worlds, providing structure while still allowing for flexibility and discovery. So, whether you're using pre-established codes or letting them emerge from the data itself, coding is an essential step in qualitative research. It gives you a way to systematically categorize and analyze your data, paving the way for meaningful insights and conclusions. Plus, it adds a level of transparency and validity to your research, which is crucial in the academic world. Remember, coding isn't about finding the right or wrong codes. It's about finding the codes that best represent your data and support your research objectives. So keep an open mind and let the data guide your coding process. In our next scene, we'll delve into the nitty-gritty of the coding process, including the stages of coding and why it's important to avoid automated coding. So stay tuned for that. Now that we understand what qualitative coding is, how do we go about it? Dive deep into the coding process, which typically unfolds in two stages. The first stage is initial coding, a sort of reconnaissance mission into the wilderness of data. This stage is all about getting a general overview of your data and developing what we call initial codes. You can do this using simple tools like Microsoft Word or Excel, jotting down emerging patterns, recurring themes, or striking anomalies. Now, what are these initial codes we're talking about? They are essentially labels that you assign to chunks of your data based on what they represent. For instance, if you're analyzing interviews about climate change, initial codes might be concern, skepticism, policy, or personal action. These codes help you to start making sense of your data, to see the forest for the trees, if you will. Once you have your initial codes, it's time to shift gears into the second stage, line-by-line coding. This is where you roll up your sleeves and get down to the nitty-gritty. You pore over each line of your data, refining and expanding your initial codes. This is where you'll start to see the finer details, the subtle nuances, and the deeper meanings that were not apparent in the initial coding stage. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, revealing richer insights with each layer. Now, you might be tempted to take a shortcut and use automated coding software, but remember, qualitative coding is more art than science. It requires the human touch, the ability to sense the emotional undertones, the cultural nuances, the unspoken implications that a machine might miss. So, while automated software can be a helpful tool, don't rely on it entirely. Instead, immerse yourself in the data, let it speak to you, engage with it. And as you do, you might find your initial codes evolving, expanding, or even merging. That's perfectly okay. Coding is an iterative process, a dialogue with your data. It's not about fitting your data into preset boxes, but about letting your data guide you, surprise you, enlighten you. And as you journey through this iterative process, you'll find your understanding deepening, your insights sharpening, your narrative emerging. You'll start to see the bigger picture, the overarching themes, the underlying patterns. And that's when you'll know that your coding process is yielding fruit. So, be patient, be open-minded, be curious. Embrace the complexity, the ambiguity, the uncertainty. And above all, trust the process. Because coding, at its core, is a journey of discovery, a journey that can lead you to unexpected insights, profound understanding, and compelling narratives. Remember, the key to successful coding lies in a meticulous human-led process. Let's dive into the different methods you can use in the initial coding stage. This is where you'll start to make sense of your data by applying labels or codes, so it's crucial to understand the various methods available and when to use them. First up, we have in vivo coding. This method involves using the participant's own words as codes. It's particularly useful when you want to keep the participants' perspectives at the forefront of your analysis. By using their own language, you are able to preserve their voice and understand their experiences from their point of view. Next, we have process coding. This method focuses on actions, processes, and movements within the data. It's ideal when you want to explore how things unfold over time or how activities are carried out. By coding for processes, you can identify sequences, patterns, and changes that may be significant to your research. Then there's descriptive coding. This method involves summarizing data extracts in a single word or short phrase that captures the essence of what's being said or done. It's a great way to get a broad overview of your data and start identifying potential themes. Let's move on to structural coding. This method involves labeling the structural attributes of the data. For example, you might code for different types of responses, different stages in an interview, or different sections in a document. Structural coding is particularly useful for managing and organizing large data sets, and for comparing data across different participants or sources. Finally, we have values coding. This method involves coding for participants' values, attitudes, and beliefs. It's a powerful way to explore the deeper meanings and motivations behind people's actions and statements. By coding for values, you can gain insights into people's worldviews, cultural backgrounds, and personal experiences. Each of these methods has its own strengths and can be used in different situations. For instance, in vivo coding is particularly useful in narrative research or phenomenological studies, where you want to stay close to the participant's own language and perspectives. Process coding is ideal for research on social processes or change over time, while descriptive coding is a great starting point for any qualitative analysis. Structural coding is a handy tool for managing and organizing your data, and values coding can give you deep insights into people's values, attitudes, and beliefs. You don't have to stick to just one method. In fact, using a combination of methods can often provide a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of your data. For example, you might start with descriptive coding to get a broad overview, then use in vivo coding to capture participants' own words, and finally use values coding to explore the underlying meanings and motivations. Remember, the goal of initial coding is not to force your data into pre-existing categories, but to let the codes emerge naturally from the data itself. It's a process of discovery, where you're trying to understand what's really going on in your data, and what it can tell you about the phenomena you're studying. The method you choose for initial coding can greatly influence the richness of your data analysis. So take the time to consider which methods are most suitable for your research, and don't be afraid to experiment with different approaches. After all, the beauty of qualitative research lies in its flexibility and openness to the unexpected. Ready to take your coding to the next level? Now that we've explored the basics, let's dive into the world of advanced coding techniques. These methods can help you elevate your analysis, enabling you to capture more complex and nuanced insights from your data. One of the key ways to do this is by combining coding methods. This involves using a mix of the coding methods we've previously discussed, such as in vivo, process, descriptive, structural, and values coding. By weaving together different approaches, you can create a rich tapestry of codes that capture the depth and diversity of your data. Think of it as a painting. Each coding method is a different brushstroke, contributing to the overall picture. In vivo coding might capture your participants' voices, process coding their actions, and values coding their beliefs and attitudes. By integrating these different elements, you can create a more holistic and comprehensive analysis. Now let's talk about code categorization and theme identification, two critical steps in the advanced coding process. Code categorization is all about grouping your codes. It's like sorting out a puzzle where you group together pieces that fit. This can be done based on similarities, differences, or relationships between codes. It's a dynamic process, with categories evolving and refining as you delve deeper into your data. Then comes theme identification. This is where you start to see the larger patterns and narratives emerging from your categories. Themes go beyond individual codes or categories. They are the overarching stories that your data tells. For instance, if you're studying student motivation, your codes might include peer influence, teacher encouragement, and interest in subject. These could be categorized under external factors and internal factors, and might contribute to a larger theme of sources of student motivation. Remember, identifying themes is not just about frequency, but also about significance. Even if a code or category doesn't occur often, if it plays a crucial role in your research question or objective, it can still form a theme. Also, it's important to note that advanced coding is not a linear process. It's iterative, meaning you might find yourself moving back and forth between coding, categorizing, and theming. You might even uncover new codes or reevaluate old ones as you progress. That's perfectly normal. In fact, it's a sign that you're engaging deeply with your data. And finally, don't forget to reflect on your role as a researcher in the coding process. It's your interpretation and decision-making that drives code creation, categorization, and theming. So be mindful of your biases and assumptions, and strive for transparency and reflexivity in your coding process. Advanced coding techniques can bring depth and nuance to your qualitative analysis. With these methods in your research toolkit, you're well equipped to uncover the rich insights hidden in your data. So go ahead, experiment with these techniques and let your data tell its story. Coding can be challenging, but these tips might just make your journey a bit smoother. Let's learn how to make your coding more effective. First off, planning is crucial. Before diving into your data, outline your steps and decide on your coding methods. Will you go for inductive, deductive, or a hybrid approach? Choose the method that best suits your research objectives. Consistency is also key. If you're using a deductive approach, a detailed codebook will be your best friend. It helps to ensure that you apply your pre-established codes uniformly across your entire data set. Next is documentation. As you code, you'll create a plethora of labels that might become overwhelming. To avoid confusion, keep track of your codes and their meanings. Revisit them regularly to ensure they still align with your data and research objectives. Speaking of alignment, one of the most important tips is to align your coding methods with your research aims and questions. Coding isn't just about labeling data, It's about extracting meaningful insights that answer your research questions. So always ensure your coding methods are in line with your research objectives. Finally, if you're working in a team, coordination is essential. All coders should be well trained and have a clear understanding of the coding methods and the research objectives. Consistent coding across all team members will ensure your analysis is robust and reliable. So there you have it. Plan your coding journey, ensure consistency, keep thorough documentation, align your coding with your research objectives, and if you're in a team, coordinate effectively. Remember, effective coding is all about consistency, accuracy, and alignment with your research objectives. As we've seen, qualitative coding is an essential part of any research. It's a cornerstone of qualitative analysis, a tool that gives us the power to dissect, organize, and make sense of the raw data we collect. Without it, our research would be like a puzzle with 1,000 pieces, and no clear picture to guide us. Think of coding as the map that helps us navigate the expansive landscape of our data. It allows us to label and categorize different pieces of content, forming the basis for themes and patterns that we can analyze and interpret. It's this systematic and transparent process that ensures the validity of our research, giving us the confidence to draw meaningful conclusions from our data. But remember, coding isn't a one-size-fits-all tool. It's a flexible and adaptable process that we can tailor to fit our research goals. Whether we use deductive or inductive coding, or even a hybrid approach, what matters most is that our method aligns with our research objectives. This alignment is key to producing a thorough and comprehensive analysis that truly answers our research questions. And let's not forget the power of planning and consistency in coding. By outlining our steps and methods before we start, and by using a detailed codebook, we can ensure that our coding is uniform and consistent. This way we don't lose sight of our code meanings and can keep track of our progress. So, as we wrap up this tutorial, I hope you're feeling more confident about diving into the world of qualitative coding. I encourage you to embrace this process, to experiment with different methods, and to find the approach that works best for you. And remember, we're here to support you on your research journey. So if you have any questions or if there's a topic you'd like us to cover in future videos, don't hesitate to drop us a comment below. So ready to take on qualitative coding in your research? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more research tips and tricks.